Hey, there we go. 98.7 WFGR. That is Billy Joel and Big Shot. You had to be a big shot, didn't you, Dave?
Had to be.
Had to big time everybody on TV today.
You know.
Took your tie off. Now you're...
I'm in relaxed radio mode.
You're in relaxed radio mode. That's nice. And we have a guest in the studio today, Jeffrey Richard Cipcic. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, how you doing, Andy?
Good, yourself?
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, I know.
It's a little early for me to be talking.
Get right up on that mic. Get
All
good
right,
and close to
there we
it.
go.
It's awkward, I know, to have...
Let's
weird.
not even go there.
Funny.
We could go there quick with this.
Well,
there we go.
we'll cut right to the chase.
Why not?
I'll just move right along.
Okay.
Jeffrey's here to talk about World AIDS Day here in Grand Rapids. Now, let me tell you a little bit of how I got to know Jeffrey here. My cousin works at his salon, which is the Jeffrey Richard Salon on Wealthy Street.
It is on Wealthy Street.
And
Thanks for the plug, Andy.
I've never been in there.
Yeah.
I looked at some pictures online.
Uh-huh.
Look at him.
What? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Look at that awful, idiotic-looking stripe
Andy,
on top
come
of his
on.
head. What could you do for him in that salon?
Now, why are you picking on
Yeah,
Dave
exactly.
so early?
Yeah. Why?
Oh, I think I know why, because we got a chrome dome across from us.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Somebody's.
Look,
got
I am
issues.
Chrome Dome by choice.
That's
Yeah.
right. I can
Hey, you
see
know
it.
what? He knows hair. Look, there's no hair missing up
Oh,
there,
okay,
is
well,
there?
I can see the stubble. I
right.
can see the stubble.
Yeah.
You, on the other hand,
You keep telling yourself that.
dip your head in the... What do you do that with? Kiwi?
Oh, no, he
We don't-
didn't. Yes, he did.
You could straighten him out, couldn't you?
Again, I'm not touching that one.
Okay, see?
I love a guy that gets right to the punch.
All right.
Perfect.
Boom.
All right. Now,
you gave me the
set
heads
it
up
up on the
yesterday,
tee on
Andy.
that.
You
Right.
said you guys were lighthearted.
Lighthearted.
Lighthearted fun. Good
Yeah.
people, yeah. So anyway, I met him at my cousin's wedding.
Okay.
And the first thing that caught me off guard was, wow, that guy knows style.
Yeah.
I wonder what he does. And then I, looked it up, and there he is. He owns Jeffrey Richard Salon, so he does know style. Good-looking dude.
Yeah.
Also, can I just say it, or can you? Would you like to say?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
There's a whole
I don't
lot you
even
can
know what
say
you're
about
saying.
me, so
He's HIV positive.
Really?
shut the front door.
I couldn't believe it.
Amazing. Now, how long have you been? Okay, I'm sorry.
What we're doing is we're bringing up World AIDS Day.
Right.
And we have talked about this in the past, Dave, that AIDS has really fallen off the radar.
No question. Especially, we were just talking about off the air, the last 10 years. And I think, to me, I don't know if you agree with this or not, Jeffrey, Magic Johnson has been both an incredible positive for awareness about it, but also people look at Magic and almost think AIDS is cured.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson's still around, because there's not one person, I think, in 1991, 92, when Magic announced he was HIV positive, that thought Magic would still be around today.
Right.
Absolutely. And that really, Magic Johnson's diagnosis was really a game changer in the face of AIDS, because you had this robust, one of the best athletes in the world and beloved to so many, who shared his business. And in that situation, I think what really kind of went down a wrong road was when he announced that his viral load was undetectable. And at that point, that was a pretty new term. And the confusion arose because people took that as to say he didn't have AIDS anymore. And he kind of, at the time, I don't think was educated himself enough to really to give a really clear distinction between that. And so people wanted to think that he was okay. And he looked okay. And at that point, we had only had visuals of people looking really ill.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look at him. Look at him. Look at this guy. He's got a T-shirt on. He's got arms.
Better shape than both of us.
Dude, I wouldn't argue with him.
No.
I'm going to tell you what.
I'm not challenging.
Fighter.
Man, that's the gun show going on over there.
But also, getting back to Magic, people forget Magic doesn't. He's HIV positive. He is not yet, I believe, contracted.
He does have full-blown AIDS.
He does.
Yeah,
really?
He does. Yep. And there's really, again, they don't really get into it. It used to be a much bigger deal, the distinction between HIV and AIDS. HIV or AIDS is just a more progressed form of HIV.
Right.
That's really the difference. And so, they really made that distinction for healthcare issues to basically have a baseline of when someone's immune system gets compromised enough where they say, okay, this is a real problem. And that's really where that distinction between HIV and AIDS came. Once you have HIV, the virus,
you're going to get the disease.
At some point, you probably will, unless you get on a really good treatment right away.
Right.
Which that's some of the more hopeful, positive things right now.
Right.
I mean, the drug treatments are just. they're
It's through the
beyond what I
roof.
ever would have thought. I mean, I never in my wildest dreams. I was diagnosed at 20.
Okay.
And
Is that hard to believe, or what? 20 years
incredible.
old.
Well, it really, I look back on it and talk about a mind, which I can't say on the air, but, it was a mind blow. Here I thought I had the rest of my life ahead of me, and I had this guy sitting across from me in a white lab coat saying, you have about 2 years to live. You better get your affairs in order. And I'm hearing this. Speaking of Charlie Brown, the Charlie Brown voice going, the teacher in my ear.
Right.
By the way, I'm a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer kind of guy.
See, ranking bass.
I have to say, I like the Grinch, man. I love the little dog.
Well, what about Charlie Brown? I
do. He's classic. He's classic. Okay. You can't beat him.
All right. He's depressive.
Yeah,
okay,
anyway.
whatever.
So,
you're 20 years old. You find this out.
And then I'm thinking to myself, I spent about 6 months really. I mean, I think probably I would say down in the gutter, but I was in my senior year. I found out right before midterms. Told my roommate because basically I had a meltdown when I found out, and then I didn't tell anybody else for years. And I think that's one of the issues that when I really wanted to get this World AIDS Day event going again 4 years ago was that this issue of no one talking about it, and the fact that years and years ago, I mean, we would just hope that people would listen and listen and change behaviors, and then they did. And the scary piece, and Andy and I were just talking about this, is that when people stopped dying is when the discussions stopped happening, because it was a lot less dramatic for people. And quite honestly, in our own way we do safety in our head, if I have a drug in the back pocket, then I can make some unsafe choices and be okay with it in my own head. Whereas before, you wouldn't do it because you're literally playing Russian roulette. This time, you're kind of playing it, but you might live long with it.
What groups today's day and age are most affected by HIV and AIDS?
Well, anyone who has sex.
Well,
anyone who has unprotected sex, and really, it's tough to kind of go here because I think we all have our stereotypes. We were talking about this before the show, and there's
because believe it or not, Jeffrey was creeping on my Facebook page, and somehow he came to the conclusion of, wow, Andy must have evolved because he doesn't really show it if you take a look at the activities he participates in.
Andy, show me the love. I didn't say it exactly like that.
Well, you were honest, and I'm okay with that.
But, and that's really, I think, what we're trying to get across is that if you've had any kind of unsafe behavior, which for most people it's unsafe, unprotected sex, since the mid-1980s, and you don't know the status of everyone that you've slept with, you should have an HIV test. I mean, it's as simple as that. And, for the vast majority of people, that test is going to come back negative, and then you're going to know.
Right. And
the really scary statistics are that 25% of the people nationwide don't know their status, and they're positive. So they've been in activity that's unsafe. They've contracted the virus, but they've not gotten tested because they're not that kind of person.
Right.
So, men who have sex with men, and one of the reasons I say that versus gay is there's a lot of men who have sex with men who don't identify as gay. For whatever reason. I mean, you can split the hair however you want to.
Which is always
that's a whole other show.
Me.
Right.
It's like, I don't,
You can have me back and we can talk about that one. Because that scratches my head too.
Yeah,
but,
really? You're not okay.
But it's really a way to talk to somebody because in their head, if they're not identifying as I'm a gay man and I stand up and say gay man, but they're not even going to listen.
Right.
So if you start talking about specific behaviors, if you do this or if you've done this, then all of a sudden you see eyes kind of light up and go, oh, okay, well, I might not identify with that label, but I've done that.
There was that one time at band camp.
Everybody, before you take that test, I remember the first time I took an HIV test for insurance purposes. You start in your head backtracking, and you think of every mistake that you made.
Well, sometimes they're not really, it's not about mistake. I mean, that's where it gets really tough. And in our community, this isn't the easiest place to live with this disease. And because immediately we go to judgment about sex, and about drugs, and about all these things that are like naughty and we don't want to talk about. Right. And the reality is, if we were talking about one of our straight college friends who hooked up on the weekend, you'd be high-fiving them. Not going, you made a mistake by sleeping with that young lady without a condom on. I mean, because quite frankly, at that point, it probably wasn't in the discussion.
No. Right. But I remember growing up in the 90s when AIDS awareness was really huge. I remember the fear that was out there as far as sex. I mean, you go to the bar, that's in the back of your head.
Yes.
And I'm just speaking as a single guy in the 90s. That thought was in my head because it was so the awareness was so out there. But then, like we talked about, just the last 10 years, people don't think about it.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, this is interesting for me. What do you think changed? I mean, being a guy that was probably out and about in the 90s doing your thing.
All the way up until probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
What do you mean, last week? Nice try, Dave.
What do you mean this morning? I saw him outside.
No, I think it's like you're not. You look at the face of, you don't see the face of AIDS anymore. Right. You don't see the dying patients. It's not
That's
front
dramatic.
page news. Yeah, it's not front page news. I mean, when was the last time you saw an AIDS story on the front page? In the 90s, it was almost every day.
Yeah.
It was in your face all the time. And now you just don't see it. And if it's not, it's like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening. And this is, I think, the other part of statistics that are scary this time of year when this event comes up and I go back and keep going over stuff is in the last 10 years, death rates have dropped dramatically because of
and good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, fantastic. The scary piece is that infection rates have stayed the same. So people are living longer, and on average, it's about, if someone lives with HIV for an average of 25, 30 years, which would be their lifetime, it's almost $500,000 to treat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the drugs are so, I've been so blessed
expensive.
with being able to afford a healthcare premium to have insurance because my stuff is like $30,000 a month, my drugs. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Then you look at affordability and access to the drug. Then it gets into a whole other realm of this that's really, really scary because it also prevents people from being tested. The social stigma,
right?
They'd rather not know.
Yeah,
they might know that they've been doing all this business, but to have to live with what people are going to think about you afterwards. And I was talking to someone who does probably the most testing in the Kent County Health Department. I was talking to one of their directors and I said, what's the biggest issue that comes up after someone tests positive? I said, first of all, are people surprised? And she said, every time.
Blown away.
They can list all these unsafe experiences they've had, but then it comes to they're shocked. So there's a level of denial that's going on too of like it's not going to happen to me.
Right.
It all falls into that. I'm not one of those kind of people.
And it can happen to anybody.
We all do it. I mean, we all have our little list of what those kind of people are.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the event coming up on Saturday.
Well, the event is at Fountain Street Church. They've been wonderful enough to open their doors to us, and it's we don't call it a service. It's not a memorial. It's just a program, and we have Edie Evans Hyde, who's a local award-winning jazz singer, who's going to be singing with us. In Harmony is an all-inclusive choir in town. We're going to be doing some music with them. And then we have a dance troupe from GVSU who's going to be doing some numbers with us. So there's going to be a lot of music. And then we're going to do actually some interviewing. I'm going to interview a woman from the Kent County Health Department about kind of the state of what's going on in Grand Rapids. And then we have a young man who's tested positive about 5 years ago. And I'm going to do a little interview with him just to kind of get in the head of a 20-something-year-old who's living with this disease in 2012. So it's a wonderful night as far as it's kind of a mix of stuff. It's a little bit of a memorial piece at the front. We do a little candlelight thing, which is beautiful. And then we kind of move on to what's good and what's happening that's positive.
Sure.
And just really trying to get discussions started like this.
Because it needs to happen.
Well, and thank you for having me on because
I'm as guilty as the next guy. You know what? You just don't think about it.
You don't.
You don't.
One person today at some point in this weekend, decides to wrap it up because they've listened to this and be safe, then it's been a good thing. So I really appreciate you having me on because it's a message that still needs to get out there.
When does this happen?
It is Saturday. Saturday is Worldwide AIDS Day. Right. So it's a day across the world that everyone is hopefully trying to bring awareness to this issue. So it's on Saturday. It's at 6:30, Fountain Street Church. And there is an event afterwards. There's another World AIDS Day event, a second one that's really a little geared more towards younger people, which is amazing. And that organization is the Red Project, and they're having their event at 8 p.m. Ours is at 6:30 downtown at Fountain Street, and then up on Wealthy Street at Wealthy Street Theater, they're having one at 8 o'clock. So there's a couple good things going on. I know Grand Valley has something going on their campus for awareness, which is great. Yeah. So we'd love to have people come down. I mean, Fountain Street, if you've never been in their sanctuary. It's a spiritual experience to walk in there because it's really incredible. Fantastic, and there's going to be some great music and I think a really good message. We'd love to have people show up.
Well, we'd love to get some people down there for you. Awesome. I mean, you're you know what? I don't care what this guy wants to talk about. He can come back. This is a good guest.
Oh,
you're awesome, man.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you so much again.
Let me ask you this. I'll tell you what. Let me take a quick break.
Okay.
Will you stick around for just a couple? I know you got clients at 8.
They'll wait.
I want to. As long as you're going to be as open and honest as you have been,
sure.
I want to touch on one more subject before you take off.
I've
All right,
got time.
stay by. We'll be right back. 98.7 WFGR.